And we're now live streaming again. So thank you very much, everybody. The four members of the public we believe might have been watching this on YouTube. Welcome back. We now return to part A that we started earlier. Then we had to go into part B because it was quite complex. And we begin the second part of part A, looking at agenda item 11, which are the minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee held on the 19th of May 2025. And you can see recommendations to Cabinet on page 46. Members wish to make any particular recommendations, or can we agree to move forward? Okay, good. Those are agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 12, the minutes of the Leisure Strategy Delivery Forum. Haven't we just done those? Just a note. Okay.
That was the week before. There was two.
Oh, there were two, weren't there? God, right. So that's the minutes of the Strategy Delivery Forum, 11th of June. Are we happy to go forward without further? Yes, we are. Thank you very much. Right. Agenda item 13, we have the Enterprise Zone Implementation Plan. And I'm thinking that might be not Francis Wadsley, but it might be somebody.
Naomi.
Oh, it's Naomi. Of course it is. Of course it is. So we've got our corporate lead for major projects and programs, Naomi Harnett, to speak on that. Naomi, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just take this opportunity to provide an update on the Enterprise Zone programme through the revised implementation plan? As set out in the agenda item, East Devon has previously approved borrowing of up to 20 million to support the Enterprise Zone programme funded by retained business rates. The plan details the completed projects, including a subsidised bus service, park and change site, long lane enhancement and town centre land acquisition, and current capital and revenue projects, including district heating, work on communications, the Cranbrook town centre work, simplified planning and other grant funding programmes. Future projects are also identified within the plan, which include further Cranbrook town centre infrastructure, supporting biodiversity net gain, green infrastructure and sustainable aviation. Detailed business cases will be prepared for each potential future investment proposal. But can I also draw your attention to the recent correspondence with MHCLG? It is the view of MHCLG that enterprise zones should integrate with the mayoral strategic authorities once these have been established. It is unclear how this will impact the existing enterprise zone designation, but until this is clarified, we need to ensure that East Devon carefully consider how investment decisions will be made, as borrowing is currently funded from retained business rate income from the statutory designation. I suggest a further conversation is held with our Section 151 officer and the Devon County Section 151 officer to ensure that we're content with these arrangements before we make any further decisions on this programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for that. So just to explain to members and members of the public, there was a rather confusing letter came through from government a couple of weeks ago, which was saying in terms, although it was opaquely written, that as part of unitarisation and then strategic mayoral, these enterprise zones would be sort of passed up into the mayoral authority, even above the unitaries. So I asked for some clarification for that through the LGA, and they came back with something which I'll just read out here. And just to say in advance, it's double Dutch in the usual fashion, but it does give grounds for hope. So this is what MHCLG said to the LGA, which is this: the government has been clear that devolution is the future and that mayors will have primary responsibility for delivering economic growth in their areas. LAs should therefore be considering how they can ensure that mayors have a key role in delivering enterprise zone, as these are important elements of an area's local growth toolkit. Our expectation is that local leaders explore integration, but ultimately it will be a local decision on how to proceed. As part of the industrial strategy, the government announced that it was doubling down on our industrial strategy zones, which include free ports and investment zones. In many places, enterprise zones are geographically and sectorally aligned with investment zones, and we want to give them a chance to benefit from enhanced government support by becoming part of the overall ISZ. But in return, the governance structures and retained business rates will need to be aligned. How this will work in each area is a local decision. So, pick the bones out of that. But I think at the moment it's kind of Corporal Jones, don't panic right now. So members, would anybody like to, Councillor Barlow, please?
Thank you, Chair. Very small point. It says this plan will be reviewed annually and updated by the EZ Board with regular reports provided by East Devon District Council. And the last one I remember was some time ago, and I think it was in Part B, there was a few issues. Do we have regular reports, or is it just sent to Cabinet and not through this part of the Cabinet where we see it?
Thank you, Chair. So reports are prepared as there's changes within the Enterprise Zone programme. The previous programme had been fit for purpose on an annual basis, thus it hadn't been substantially updated.
Sorry, through you, Chair, again, but it says on financial performance, job commercial and floor space creation. I just wonder if we know how it's going, because as I said, the last we heard, it was might have been some issues. I think that's why it was in Part B from my memory.
So, I mean, technically, I am the chair of the enterprise zone. So, so there are opportunities for members. Those aren't Part B, I don't think, those meetings. So it's possible for members to attend that. And I'm not sure how many times that meets a year. Naomi, is it 2, 3 maybe?
Usually twice a year, Chair.
Yeah. But it is an interesting point. It's probably worth thinking about how that is reporting back into the council outside. But it's a freestanding separate board entity in effect, and we've got a number of those, of course, that we sit on. Things like the Science Park and whatever.
It just says in the report that we get regular reports are provided. But I just didn't know how regular they were, if it was once every 2 years.
This is one of them, isn't it? Probably, but yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Goodman, please.
It's only a very minor point. Over the last year, we've really improved the templates of our reports. And when I look at page 61 and look at climate change, it says medium impact. But what is the impact? We got it in another report later on. Surely there should be some substance behind why is it a medium impact? It's on page 61. It's just medium impact, but why is it medium impact? And it's in the report itself, but I think for clarity, and you can't change it now, but bringing that out under that heading would be helpful. That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay. All right, thank you. No, points made. That was noted. Thank you very much. Councillor Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. 4.1, we got the 4 zones. Cranbrook Town Centre, to what extent is Cranbrook Town Centre, how much of it is an enterprise zone, particularly bearing in mind that letter you've received, and it's like, I don't know how that would fit. Do we know?
Yeah, well, Naomi, I mean, it's self-evident, isn't it, that the other parts named are enterprise zones where new units can be built and so forth. How does Cranbrook fit into the designation there?
Thank you, Chair. So when we made decision on the enterprise zone designation back in 2016, we looked at sites which were stalled or had slow delivery, which did include Cranbrook Town Centre. And as town centre uses also deliver business rate income, it was felt appropriate to designate that town centre, but we know that it's unusual within a enterprise zone designation to include a town centre site. and the red line boundary for the enterprise zone includes all of the town centre land as identified in the Cranbrook plan.
Thanks, Naomi, very much. So, I mean, just to comment very briefly on my own part, I mean, this is one of the most remarkable successes of this council, I think. And I think we have to acknowledge that there's been, particularly the relationship, I suppose, and I'm not being party political here, I'm giving credit to the former administration at Devon County as well, the support that's come from officers and from lead members. So it's an extraordinary programme. And if you look at pictures of what was there, I don't know, Naomi, maybe 10 years ago, it was absolutely zilch. So it's extraordinary. It has created thousands of jobs, I think that's fair to say as well, within the zone. And it's a very, very important part of the economy in Devon, in East Devon. Not in Exeter, in East Devon. Right, so moving on, we're asked to note this. So if everybody's happy to do that, I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Everybody in favour of noting that? Yeah, good, lovely. We don't have to vote on it really. Perfect. Thank you very much for your patience, Naomi, and for waiting behind. We now go on to agenda item 14, another one from Naomi, which is the procurement of legal, financial and commercial advisors for Cranbrook District Heating Expansion Areas project. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this item relates to the procurement of legal and financial advisors to support the development of district heating in the expansion areas of Cranbrook. This work is externally funded through a commercialisation grant from the Green Heat Network Fund, which was specifically awarded to support development of this project. The consultants that we propose to appoint have prior involvement in district heating projects, including the District Heating Interconnector project. We seek to award these contracts through procurement frameworks. This type of appointment is cost and time effective, as well as compliant with the Council's contract procedure rules. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bartlett, please.
There's a technical point really, Chair. Why is this in Part A and not in Part B if we're talking about figures for contracts?
Because it's over 100,000, we have to, I believe, and there's nothing to hide about that. So, you know, it is what it is. It's setting an amount, isn't it? It has to come to us. Yeah, Mel can probably make a much better fist of it than me.
Absolutely. Where we put it into Part B is where we've obviously had other unsuccessful bidders and we put scores in there and things like that. But the actual price and who you award the contract to is not confidential. So it depends on the content of the report, basically.
Thank you. Councillor Blakey, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just ask a few questions, because I'm not clear on exactly what we're getting here. My first reaction when I saw the total figure of £328,000 was to think, oh my word, that's a lot of money. What are we actually getting for it? And I can't quite decipher where we're at. The contracts in both cases are for consultant support for legal advisor or financial advisor. So I'd be interested to know what that consultant support actually provides for the money that is being spent. I do appreciate that this is not East Devon district taxpayers' money. It's coming from outside the authority, but even so, I think it's worth having that information. The report doesn't tell us actually how long a period this contract is going to run for, and particularly I wonder if there is, because the report summary suggests that these are maximum expenditures, so one assumes that there is an opportunity to stay within those figures. So I'm imagining that there is some kind of hourly rate which is charged, which would be normal for legal or financial advice. Do we know how those charges are going to be laid, at what rate? And if we do know, I think probably it would have been a good idea to have included it in the report. And if we don't know, I just wonder why we don't know, because surely it is something that is vital information. So Number of questions there. Back through you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi, you happy to pick those up?
Thank you, Chair.
Can I just suggest, actually, do you want to come to sit in a different place? Because I feel like some kind of glove puppet because your voice is coming out the back of my head on screen. I'm not sure that will work either. Can you come and join the cabinet thing and maybe try and log in with your card? Might that work? If not, come and sit next to me. Because I do think this is, do you want to come and sit up here? Please do. Just because there's a vacant seat, and just to be. It's no, she can take my seat. Right. There we go.
Thank you, Chair.
Welcome.
With regards to the rates for the legal advisors and the financial advisors, we have quite complex overviews on the various day rates for each different type of consultant within those organisations, and an approximate breakdown of how much time each consultant will spend upon the project. But we'll receive detailed invoices each month through the programme, which details what time and which consultants have spent time on the project. So we do have approximate day rates, but we will be receiving detailed invoices on a monthly basis, which break down that information in more detail, and so we can review that each month to ensure that we're spending within the headroom that we've identified. With regards to the amounts that we've allowed, we now have significant experience in delivering district heating projects, and we think this is realistic in the support we will require to go out to procurement for an ESCO to serve the expansion areas of Cranbrook and develop a financial model to support the investment of the grant funding that we've also received as part of this programme. And so whilst it does seem very expensive in terms of legal and financial advice, given the specialist nature of this advice, unfortunately it comes at a much higher cost than other types of legal and financial advice that we may require on other types of projects.
Thanks, Naomi. I'll just shout across you. Yes, Kevin, coming back. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to be clear then, is this a case of when it's gone, or do we anticipate that if things drag on a bit and it gets a bit complicated, that there may well be additional payments that will have to be made, or do we believe that this is it?
Thank you, Chair. So we believe that we've appropriately estimated on the support we require for each of these advisors, but we do have further headroom within the commercialisation support should there be overspend in any particular area.
Okay, Kevin, anything else? So anybody else like to ask any questions as we've got the guest leader here in the chair? Or can we send her away? What do you think, boys and girls? No. Okay, thanks, Naomi, very much. Okay. Very good. Well done. Thank you. Right. So, where were we? So we have recommendations here at on page 64. We've heard, Councillor Olive, please.
I was just going to propose those recommendations for you, Chair.
Councillor Leisure seconding, Councillor Olive proposing. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Excellent, brilliant, thank you, Naomi. We're now going to agenda item 15, the annual complaint monitoring and service improvement report for 24 to 25, pages 68 to 76 on your agenda, and a report from our monitoring officer, Melanie Wellman. Mel, please.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the regular annual complaint monitoring report that comes into Cabinet each year. The same report will be going to the Scrutiny Committee tomorrow evening as well. Just to highlight a few things in the report. So as it sets out, we've had 372 stage 1 complaints during 2024 and 25. And then 135 went on to be stage 2 complaints. 63% of those were resolved at the first stage, and then obviously the remainder went on. Our average response time at present is 25 working days for stage 1 complaints and 46 working days for stage 2 complaints. 65% of stage 1s were upheld or partially upheld, and 73% of stage 1 housing complaints were upheld or partially upheld. If I turn over onto the second page of the report, it gives you a breakdown of the complaints over the last 3 financial years. As you'll see, there's been a steady increase in complaints. So in 23, we had 182. It's gone up to 324 and 372 in 2025. That is not unexpected. The Ombudsman is seeing an increase of over 50% increase in complaints generally across the sector. So it is quite normal to see an increase. And in fact, in freedom of information, subject access requests, other areas that I manage, we are seeing exactly the same pattern in terms of, increases in the numbers that are coming through. In terms of where those main areas of complaints are coming through, you'll see that the highest percentage relate to housing at just under 75%, which again, we would probably expect, bearing in mind the significant piece of work that we're doing in the housing service and the work we're doing, particularly around the repairs and maintenance side of things. Planning tends to be up there in the top 2, but obviously that's still only showing 9% of the complaints. So it's not out of ordinary in terms of where we would see the main areas of complaints coming from. Then in terms of housing complaints, because clearly being our biggest percentage, it's important that we drill down and understand, where those are coming from. And you will see that just under 85% of those relate to repairs, and then followed by estate management, but obviously at a much lower level. So that is, again, of no surprise to us in terms of where we would anticipate seeing those levels coming from. Obviously, the most important thing with complaints is learning from them. We are on a huge change journey. With any change journey, you are not, with complaints, going to see those complaints figures turn around and come down to a much reduced level for some time, because obviously complaints are from historical events. They then take quite a period of time to go through our stage 1 and then our stage 2. And then if they go on up to the Ombudsman, that can take many, many months before they've gone through that process. So you wouldn't really expect to see the improvements that we're already seeing in performance, particularly, for example, in our housing service. You wouldn't expect to see that really filtering through into your complaint statistics, possibly for about 18 months. So it does take time for these things to filter through. So in terms of the planning complaints, we've detailed sort of the main issues that we've had there, and it's really been an issue with staffing levels, but you will remember that we had a number of vacancies over the last sort of year, 18 months, and that's very much been tackled. And obviously, we've also had a lot of changes in legislation, which will have had an impact on capacity. So with new officers having been recruited, the number of complaints for delays in planning applications, which obviously is a significant proportion of those complaints, is absolutely beginning to fall. In terms of our housing complaints, again, obviously lessons learnt. there have definitely been some trends, delays in carrying out repairs, quality of repairs, communication challenges around appointments, and making sure that we're communicating efficiently and promptly with tenants as clearly some of the trends that we're seeing in relation to those complaints. But in the grey box that you'll see on page 73, we've taken some key steps in terms of having weekly meetings with contractors to discuss those high-profile cases and complaints and ensuring that repairs are on track, improved training of staff, improvements in sharing of information. We've reviewed the team setup to make sure we've got the right resources, and we are having weekly meetings between the complaints team and the housing service so that we can discuss individual complaints and make sure that we're setting weekly priorities. I had hoped to bring you both the latest performance reports from the Housing Ombudsman and from the local government ombudsman, but unfortunately the housing one isn't quite out yet. So what is in your paperwork today is the figures that you had last year that were reported for the period 23-24. So I'm not really going to dwell on those because we are quite imminently, I think, going to be receiving an updated report from the Housing Ombudsman. Obviously, knowing about the number of complaints that we've got regarding the housing service, obviously we await with interest. We know there's a high number of complaints going through to the Ombudsman, so we obviously await that report, and we know, there's an issue there, and we're taking great steps to try and tackle that. In terms of the Ombudsman, the local government Ombudsman, on page 75, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, we've just had that report, and that is showing a positive picture. In terms of the 30 complaints that went through to the Ombudsman, 11 weren't for the Ombudsman or weren't ready to investigate, and basically only 3 of those complaints needed investigation and only 1 was upheld. So that is showing a very positive side on the remainder of our complaints outside of the housing picture. Happy to answer any questions that members have. Bear in mind, please, obviously I'm not involved in the day-to-day operational with complaints, so it may be some things I might need to take away and report back to members on.
Thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. These numbers, if you had 1 complaint from 20 people, is that 1 complaint or 20 complaints?
That would be 20 complaints. Yeah. So each individual complaint that we received is obviously logged. Absolutely.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Barley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. The key actions, obviously you say 18 months to get these things started and to go through it. I'm not going to go through everything tonight because I've got to go do this all again tomorrow on scrutiny. But the thing that concerns me greatly is the key actions that you've put out, on, especially on housing, that what you're going to do and how we're going to solve this, and that's going to be hopefully next year, we'll see some results. If you look back at this time last year in Cabinet, for the exact same report, the exact same key housing actions have just been copied and pasted and stuck in. So the exact same actions that we're going to take this year to make it right are the exact same actions that we took last year to make it right, and yet the complaints have jumped. So are we taking it seriously, or are we just saying, we accept, we get complaints, we have 4,000 houses and 300 and whatever is not bad, leave it at that?
There is a significant amount of work going on, and obviously that's a summary of some of the things that they are doing within that service area, and it may be at some point that either Tracy or the portfolio holder want to come in, but yeah, absolutely there is a significant amount of things that are going on, and obviously we've recently had, what was it called? Is that? No, okay. So lots of things. As you know, regular reporting is going into HRB, and they are obviously seeing significant performance reports. Performance has significantly improved, and on the back of that, obviously, what you get with complaints is if you're doing it right and you've got issues and you're pushing people down the complaints process, you're actually encouraging more people to complain. But that's right, because they should be going through that process. So you will get a spike of things going up before you see any improvements. But I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything to that.
We haven't got Catherine, who's
No.
the
I will
director
have
of housing.
housing there tomorrow at
But
scrutiny,
tomorrow at
because I asked them
scrutiny.
to be there. So
I will
we
ask
will
no
be
more.
able to get underneath it a little bit more with housing's help.
Through you, Chair, I will ask no more. I shall wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
With great
Yeah.
excitement.
Well, I alas have got an alternative engagement for tomorrow, but I shall watch it. I shall watch it. Thank you very much. Councillor Goodman, was it? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. On that side, thank you. Whichever way we look at this is not a good report for East Devon. And I'm not going to go through the detail, but I can tell you, and I'm sure everybody, all councillors in the same situation, most of my casework is housing, no question of it. And I know the pressure in the work that the housing team have done, but tomorrow we will be discussing this report and we will come up with, I'm sure, some recommendations. I would just like to suggest to the portfolio and the cabinet, I think the Housing Review Board would benefit from using and working with scrutiny to look at some of these issues, to see if we can help in terms of a task group with housing, because, and I know we've discussed this before, but I'm putting the olive branch out there that I think it could really help us look at the detail underneath this. Now, what detail? I haven't got a clue at the moment, but I'm saying I think we need to really get underneath it. And I'm not convinced the Housing Review Board can do this without some help. And I'm just offering some help from scrutiny before the meeting tomorrow.
So I'll come back. So Housing Review Board is a scrutiny committee, as you know, Mike. And I think that's the answer I'd have to give. There's a risk of too many cooks spoiling the broth on this. It is taken incredibly seriously by the portfolio holder and by cabinet. And as we all know, it came from a very, very bad place. And it's been brilliantly addressed by, still in local government terms, very new officers in the last 2 years. So what you're getting here is not a pretty picture, but I've got every confidence HRB, Dan, Tracy, Catherine are across this. But I think it'll be great to have it discussed under your chairship tomorrow, definitely. Anybody else want to come forward? Yeah, Councillor Gazal, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would agree with your comments that HRB is a scrutiny committee. Thank you, Melanie, for the report. Even I can understand it, so I appreciate that. It's just on the housing complaints, and I think you said that there's an increase in them to do with repairs. Now, is that a problem on the actual repairs, or is it a problem with communications between the contractor and the resident, please?
Thanks, Steve, very much. So anybody else like to contribute to this? If not, I think we are noting this, aren't we? Let's go. Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. There is also another aspect, and everything that the monitoring officer said is correct, and the group will be aware of this, but we live in a social media age. And I believe some of the rise in our complaints have been perpetuated. And I see 5 or 6 posts a week, which are evidently fake, that come across social media and they pop up and they say, oh, have you heard about this? And then someone chips in, no, tell me more about this. And then the same person says, oh, you must visit this website. And it's driven, it's not uncommon as what we used to call ambulance chasing solicitors. It's a new growth industry. And this has seen a rise, an exponential rise in complaints. You know, yes, our property portfolio is old. We've done this to death at various meetings and discussed, and we have a new team trying to deal with it. But if you have a social media, and I'm not naming the platform, perhaps I already have, that is allowing essentially a growth industry in falsehoods, in pushing lawyers and groups who make a commission on this, then you will see an exponential and a commensurate increase in complaints. And of course, people do talk to each other. So, you know, when they get an outcome, they tell their neighbours, they tell their friends and relatives. And this is part of the issue. And actually, so it is. The more we encourage people down the complaint route, we will see more complaints. But there are other factors involved in this. And I think that needs to be taken into context with these figures. Yes, we would like to see no complaints. Every local authority would, but that will never happen. So I think we push forward, HRB do their job. You know, Councillor Goodman has made a kind offer. Let HRB ruminate on that. Let the portfolio holder, the officers consider it, but let them do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Portfolio holder, Councillor Leisure, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think I share everyone's frustrations here. It's not a good position to be in, and it's not one that we as a council want to be in. I think what it doesn't explain is the journey that we've been on, and that's no slight on officers who wrote the report, but the actions taken I don't think have been highlighted well enough to the membership here. And maybe what would be helpful is that kind of lessons learned picture that we've kind of taken on that journey that we've done. That be better explained to members subsequent to the meeting of what actions we've actually taken in depth to, for instance, the maladministration, the severe maladministration case with the ASB. That was going on nearly 2 years ago now. As well as all the other maladministration cases where we have taken note of it, we have taken stock, and we've made tangible steps to improve the service. I think that would much better explain and probably comfort a lot of members. It's not, and I sit in HRB meetings and say we aren't where we want to be, but we are improving month on month. And yeah, I can see it happening, so.
Not wanting to mess with your own domestic arrangements, but are you going to scrutiny tomorrow to appear before Councillor Goodman?
Unfortunately, I have work, Chair.
Okay, all right. It could be, may I make a sort of suggestion, which is perhaps email to Councillor Goodman what you've just said so that he can read it out. It's just, I'm sure he'd value that. Thank you. Anybody else then? In which case this is for noting, so we don't need to go to a vote, I don't think. So duly noted. Thank you very much, Mel. So we now go to, now I think, is Jeff, are you introducing this one, Jurassic Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Mitigation, before you hand over? That's agenda item 16. Okay, over to you, Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce this item as I'm portfolio for this responsibility. The Jurassic Coast Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Mitigation Study. This study is estimated to cost $495,000 and fully funded via joint funding bids submitted from Southwest RFCC and Wessex RFCC and the Environment Agency, etc., to deliver the project over the next 3 years. This project is very timely with our work on cliff erosion, both at Sidmouth and Budley, and will help in a collaborative approach for these emerging schemes. I would propose the recommendation as written, and I now pass over to Tom Buxton-Smith to explain all the technical stuff and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report is on the project, which is essentially a proactive approach to the management and interaction of coastal communities, their defences against erosion and the impact on the World Heritage Site. It's about engagement with UNESCO using their own guidance to show, test and discuss how we can keep our communities safe, but working in collaboration with the World Heritage Site to ensure sensible compromises can be made going forward. It does carry some risk, as we're essentially putting out our hands to say our communities are at risk of coastal erosion and their future defences may impact the World Heritage Site. However, we would be doing this on proactively rather than reactively, as anyone can inform UNESCO of potential harm to the World Heritage Site at any point. We've gained external funding to deliver this, with South West Flood and Coastal leading on the project. Financially, it's hosted by Dorset Council, so there's no financial implications for East Devon District Council and very little staff resource. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom. Excellent. So we are asked Cabinet to note the commencement of the project and support EDDC officer involvement in its development. Anybody wish to? Councillor Goodman, please.
Yeah, just for clarity, Tom, when I read this, I thought, well, we've agreed the Sidmouth, and that was the first thing that struck me, the Sidmouth management plan. Could that change after this work is completed? Because I got confused that we've got the Sidmouth plan, and now we're going to look at another piece of work. Whilst that work is still to be completed, could that lead to a change of that plan, or have I got it wrong?
I think complement is probably the best word. So this is a separate study, but a process we'd have to go through for Sidmouth. At the moment, UNESCO haven't been notified about Sidmouth. We will need to notify them that we intend to do some works that will change the World Heritage Site. It will complement that, either works with it. We think Sidmouth will probably run ahead of it, and this will follow on. So this isn't seeking to undo what we've just discussed. It's to provide more of a holistic approach to everything. So not just Sidmouth, all the other towns and their influences on the World Heritage Sites on our coastline, but also a lot in Dorset. So,
If I may, I think what's really important, after you explaining that, I now get it, but it's important when we do the comms for this, that the public understand what it means, because that is the key, because I was very confused. You've explained it now, and I'm just thinking the wider public.
Thanks, Mike. I'm sure we will. I think 111 on page 80. It's incredibly exciting, this, because it's fortunate for Sidmouth it's included in this 6-year programme with places being looked at. So it's Sidmouth, it's Chesil Cove, it's the stretch from Portland Underhill to Wick Regis, Portland Harbour, Swanage, South Devon and Dorset, and North Swanage and Durlston Bay. And this is going to be, it's worth saying now, such a massive challenge for any future councils here. We're going to have some tough decisions to make. And as Jeff knows, and as you know, Sidmouth has been a huge challenge. Seaton, there's been some good stuff happening there, just very in recent weeks. I think one of the things that's been a sadness to me is that we've never really got. There was this idea of doing a Jurassic Coast National Park, and that was slightly spiked here 5 or 6 years ago. There were bits of Dorset that would have liked it. But it seems to me we've still got work to do to almost market the preservation, conservation of the Jurassic Coast in the public mind. But I think certainly it's got the attention through our officers and the Dorset officers of the people like the Environment Agency and others. But it's a story that needs to be told. It's a narrative we could well develop more. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else like to? Peter, please, Councillor Faithful.
Just checking, it finishes at Orkham Point, is that right? Queen's Drive is not included.
Yes, I'm pretty sure the World Heritage Site finishes at Orkham Point and does not extend further to the west.
Thank you. So, Councillor Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, really. I'm absolutely delighted to see this project. World Heritage Site is a major tourist attraction for the district. supports jobs and so on. We must absolutely protect it and protect the status that it has, because it certainly brings in people and hopefully from Europe and so on. I don't need to second this, but I would ask, please, if if my portfolio could be included, just copied in and kept up to date, please. That would be really appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. But I won't get involved in any.
I think that's a great idea, because I think comms are really good coming out through Jeff as well. But I think if we do widen it out to wherever you could even sort of go.
We don't big it up enough at the moment. in my view.
No,
But anyway,
absolutely. And
that's
there's a
another
team
matter.
there that
Yeah.
can do it. Yeah, quite. Okay, lovely. Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Fully support this. I read this with absolute interest. This is one of these reports that I just wish I could squeeze those 6 pages and sort of inject it into every resident's mindset, because, you know, a lot of this information is just completely not even on anyone's radar about what we as an authority have to do to protect this World Heritage Site, something that's been around 185 million years. And here we are in our short time in administration and in authority trying to deal with it. But for people who say, you know, what does the district council do? You know, you're just a waste of space, you're this, and a lot of criticism, we know. But this sort of encapsulates it. We are actually doing our bit to try and protect a World Heritage Site. And it's hard work. And we have to, you know, heaven forbid we ever lose that UNESCO classification, because it's critically important. Councillor Hookway has covered it. And yet, for most people, all this is just words. It's just a technical thing to allow them to go on the beach with their grandchildren, with their kids, chip away at some rocks and find a fossil and come home and go, look what I found. The result of 185 million years worth of evolution. So I fully endorse this. Thank you to all the officers and everyone who contributes to it. It's very utterly, vitally important. But I just think it's so misunderstood. People just don't know the sheer amount of effort, procedure, protocol, policy that goes into safeguarding what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, very much. So with the agreement of members, we're happy to note that report, aren't we? And thank you very much indeed. So Jeff, back to you again to tee up Tom. Sorry, I should say this is agenda item 17, Budley Sawston Beach and Cliff Management Plan. Sorry.
Right. We propose to set up a Budley Sawston Beach and Cliff Management Plan to develop and examine sustainable approaches to managing the risk of coastal erosion at Budley Sawston over the short and long term. The project is estimated to cost 195,000. And we've secured 165,000 from local levy. So we're splashing out 30,000 from East Devon. And it's going to be delivered over the next 2 years. That is looking at the scheme, not delivering the scheme. The project will be led and managed by Alan Frampton from South West Flood and Coastal Team. And this is our joint effort with Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council on a shared service agreement. The project board and the advisory group will be organised similar to our normal arrangements with beach management plans. I would like to propose this recommendation and hand over again to Tom Buxton-Smith to describe all the technical stuff again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leung. Over to you, please, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. So there is a local demand for a beach and cliff management plan for Budley Salterton following a series of cliff falls, and this report seeks to set one up, both the project board and the advisory group. The beach and cliff management plan is to work out how best to manage the beach and cliffs into the future, based on what would gain permission, but also what is fundable given the various funding routes. The aim is to produce a one-stop document which will outline what we can and can't do to help guide residents and landowners into the future. To do this, we need to set up a project board, but also we need the input of local residents, members, businesses and landowners from around the beach and cliffs to ensure all the views are taken on board so we can produce a useful document to help guide future management. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, very much. Any comments or questions from outside of Cabinet, please? Councillor Gazzard, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just really hope that Cabinet will endorse this tonight. From a resident just down the road in Exmouth. I go to Budley as well, so it'd be really nice to have this in place for Budley, because obviously they will be facing problems, if not already, but later on. So hopefully Cabinet will give it its full endorsement tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, we've got our life model who's prepared to go into the sea at Budley to, show it all off when the time comes. I didn't mean life model, I meant live model, I think. There's a distinction, isn't there? So Jeff, please.
Yeah, a big difference between Budley Seafront and Sidmouth Seafront is that Sidmouth Seafront isn't in the World Heritage site, but Budley is. The item we discussed earlier will help with this one tremendously. Now, it's very tricky to do something to protect buildings at the same time as considering a World Heritage site. So it's going to be a tricky one, this one. But we have got a really good team now that we're working with Southwest Flood and Coastal. Thank you.
Excellent, Jeff. Thank you. So again, we're noting this, aren't we? So unless anybody objects to that, that is duly noted, and thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Yes, please, Mel.
Whilst it is to note, you're also granting delegated authority, so I think you should have a vote on this one if you wouldn't mind. please.
Okay, very good, thank you. In which case, all those in favour of the delegated authority being granted, thank you very much. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Tom, again. We then go on to agenda item 18, the Natural Seaton Interpretive Master Plan, presented by Charlie Plowden, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm standing in for James, since Country Filing's been very much in demand, so you'll have to deal with me. Very excited about this, Chair. As a ward member, you'll be familiar with the ambitions for the Axe Valley to become a regionally important nature-based tourist destination, and this is another important milestone along that journey. The Natural Seaton Master Plan will help to set out the framework for how it will create a brand to bring together issues around its important wildlife, geology, and also the cultural heritage which is being built in here, and the role of our assets such as the wetlands, Southwest Coast Path, Seaton Museum, Seaton Tram, etc., all going to be absolutely critical in making this happen. And with hopefully the right stakeholder group involved, we can start to see some real action very soon with the residual money that's been made available from the sale of the Seaton Jurassic Centre. The final part of the report is around James, Countryside Manager, making a bid to the National Lottery to bring together the southern end ambitions of the wetlands with the land holdings we've got there to bring in new visitor infrastructure, access, intertidal habitat, etc. So we can complete the job in the southern end and make that connection, that very important connection with Seaton Jurassic Centre, bring that together and ultimately leading on to the seafront. So all in all, I think this is a really exciting and important development to the development of Seaton and its offer for tourism and also local people. Thank you, Chair.
That's excellent, Charlie. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's been involved in this. And I suppose I'd make the point as we go forward how exciting it is, and let's keep Nick's portfolio cited on this one as well, because this is around tourism too, as well as placemaking. Very good. Anybody from outside of Cabinet wish to comment on that, or coming inside Cabinet? Councillor Olive, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to observe what an excellent start to the placemaking plan for Seaton this is, and I'd like to propose the recommendations, please.
Very good. Anybody like to second that? Councillor Hookway, absolutely. I suppose at this point I do need to declare that I'm the county member, aren't I, for Seaton and Colliston. So that is a disclosable, non-effects, non-pecuniary, everything, isn't it, really? Yes, I'm just the member. Yes. Thank you. If you can fix it afterwards. Dan, do you need to declare as the district member for Seaton? I don't know.
I don't think so, Chair. While I've got the mic.
Yes, you cheeky monkey.
I don't think it's for tonight or to go into it with too much detail, but could I just ask Charlie that under phase 1 with the discovery points, the group just review those and see whether they are the usability of them and whether they're still relevant to Seaton.
Noted. Thank you, Councillor Ledger. And I know you've got some specific points you want to raise on that. We can take that outside of the meeting, but yes, we will do.
This is local knowledge. So
very
born
much
and
so,
bred,
Chair.
you know what they're like. You don't want to put it there. Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. So we're asked to, there are a number of recommendations there, which you can see on page 94. Councillor Olive has proposed. Councillor Hookway seconded. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, Charlie, for hanging on for that. And if James is, presumably he's in LA at the moment, is he, or something, you know, so, you know, okay. But thank him as well, please. Very good. We now go to agenda item 19, which is the reform of planning committee's technical consultation. I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting, Ed, so long, but I'm always over to Ed, our Assistant Director, Planning Strategy and Development Management. Ed, please.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, this report follows on from, I think, your last meeting when I came and talked about the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. This is a working paper that picks up some of the proposals within that in relation to introduction of a national scheme of delegation, proposed changes to the size and composition of planning committees and mandatory training for planning committee members. So you'll see the proposals are set out briefly within the report, but effectively in terms of the national scheme of delegation, it talks about having 2 tiers of planning applications. One, tier A, which would have to be delegated to officers in all cases, and a tier B, which would go through a sort of gateway test between the chief planner and the chair of the planning committee, which is similar to arrangement we have at the moment. But at the moment, that arrangement relates primarily to household extensions and very minor applications. Under these proposals, that would be broadened out to a much wider range of applications, taking in some quite significant proposals. So effectively trying to enforce a greater level of delegation to officers through this approach to what we currently have. Then in terms of the size and composition of planning committees, the main proposals are around setting a maximum committee size of 11 members. So for reference, our current planning committee is 16 members, so that would be quite a significant reduction and obviously limits members' input, particularly in combination to the changes to the scheme of delegation. You'd have fewer applications going to committee, fewer members on the committee, much less engagement in terms of those planning decisions from the elected members. And then it talks in terms of mandatory training and a national certification scheme, either to be procured by MHCLG or run at local planning authority level, with a certification scheme to ensure that members are adequately trained that sit on planning committees. So there's a total of 20 questions to the consultation, which we've proposed responses to. I won't go through them in detail, but fundamentally the general gist of the responses is picking up on trends and concerns I know from previous discussions with members and discussions I've had with Councillor Olive as a portfolio holder, in terms of this move away from so much member engagement in planning decision making, that loss of democracy in that process, and also the principle of sort of the government imposing those kind of restrictions and removing the local choice about how and where decisions are made on these important issues to our local communities. So that's the general thread of the responses, but happy to take any questions or comments on the responses as set out in the reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ed. Councillor Gazzard and then Councillor Faithful. Councillor Steve.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I should declare an interest that I am a member of the Planning Committee as it stands at the moment. I'm really sad that the government have decided to go down this route of what they want to do, because I think it is a threat to democracy of planning. I think the Planning Committee that we have at the moment works extremely well. Yes, we have our differences of opinion with officers. Sometimes we overturn their decisions, and you know, that's to me that is democracy. And I think reducing the committee to a smaller size is regrettable. And you know, we're only lay representatives, and I think that's important that we haven't got qualifications behind us. We're there to represent the people that we represent, and I think this is a retrograde step. I look forward to hearing Cabinet's response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to Councillor Gazzard, and with your many years of experience, that carries a lot of weight, and thank you for that. Councillor Faithful, please.
Thank you, Chair. Have we any idea the timescale that this is take to go through its process?
Through you, Chair, well, things are moving very quickly, because I think when I attended your last meeting, I was saying, you know, that this would all depend on secondary legislation, and I didn't have any of the details, and now a month later have a working paper with the details in. So logically, the Planning and Infrastructure Bill has to go through Parliament and become an act, and then the secondary legislation would have to follow. But at the current pace, I think we're probably talking months rather than years. So maybe 6 to 12 months, I would have thought, at the current rate, and this could well be in place.
Yep. Sin in haste, repent at leisure. Councillor Olive, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to expound too much or get on my high horse, because I think we all had the opportunity to do that at the last meeting.
It is the last item tonight, so feel free.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I can't be visible, so I can hardly do my acrobatics without being on camera.
Would you like to come and sit up here as well?
No, I'm all right down here. Thank you, Chair. As the ghost of Councillor Olive, I'd like to draw Cabinet's attention in particular to one of stop distracting me. I'd like to draw Cabinet's attention to one of the answers to this consultation in particular, and that's question 2, which is one of the more substantive answers. It's about which application types ultimately should fall within Tier A, which is the tier that must, they're suggesting by law, be delegated to officers. And in particular, it's the second paragraph of that response that I wanted to highlight, which was an addition to the response that I asked Ed and Andy to make as we were drafting this one up. Because it's really important to me on the death of democracy and planning point, to not see these changes in isolation. One, we have local government reorganisation, which, you know, despite your 20% odds of it not happening, Chair, means that fundamentally those planning decisions are going to be made further away from local people. And then 2, a relatively little noticed line in the spending review, which I'd completely missed actually at the time, but I was horrified to be notified of by Angela King, our neighbourhood planning officer, is that the government have completely killed, please stop, completely killed any and all funded technical support for developing neighbourhood plans. So now any town or parish council that has an interest in developing granular planning policy to affect the kind of applications that the government are now saying should be entirely delegated to officers is effectively up the creek without a paddle, unless they've got a qualified planning policy officer who happens to sit on their parish council and is willing to dedicate many hours of unpaid labour to producing and evidencing those policies. It's a tragedy. And I commend the responses to Cabinet, and I'll propose those recommendations. They say exactly what they need to. And I'm grateful to Ed and to Andy for putting this together and for being here at nearly 9 o'clock to go through them with us.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, very much. I think to address one point very quickly, the other thing we can fight for as an authority and as authorities within Devonshire is to ensure that no matter how LGR shapes up, that within the new localities, that potentially they could retain a good deal of control over planning in their area. So just hypothetically, let's say Devon was 5 localities. I mean, I'm really just sort of riffing here. Then you could still have planning decisions made close to where people live. But that's a battle worth having, potentially. Right. So, Councillor Ledger, please.
Chair, it's just more so of a question because I'm reading the report and I don't fully understand. So, with regards to Tier B optional officer delegation, so when it comes to member and officer planning applications, those coming through, will they automatically go to committee, or is it down to officer delegation on whether he or she, the planner that's the case officer, believes that should go to committee?
So applications where the applicant is the local authority or a elected member or officer would be in that Tier B optional. So the rationale being that this type of application is included to ensure that there can be open scrutiny of applications correctly linked to the local authority itself. So it would be for discussion between the chief planner and the chair of the planning committee as to whether or not they went to committee, presumably having regard to whether there's suitable openness and transparency in that. I would say in terms of our current scheme of delegation, there are some applications where the local authority is the applicant and nobody comments on the application at all that are currently entirely delegated to me. So actually that's almost a step back to more member involvement in terms of those applications, but those where there are objections as things stand automatically go to committee. So that would be then a step back from member engagement in those applications from where we currently are.
Thank you very much. Coming back to, well, I'll come to Councillor Hayward first and then back to Councillor Olive.
Thank you, Chair. I can't really say much more than Councillor Olive said. It's just a disgrace. And, you know, part of me just wants to join a party just so I can then cut the card in half in a fit of pique afterwards. Just proposals like this, just madness. It just, for someone who really values democracy and the ability of people to engage at a local level and feel that their voice is being heard, this just is contrary to everything I believe. And Councillor has just raised a point. So, you know, under the proposals, Tier A, the minor residential development, so officers will have mandated delegated authority to consider, you know, 9 houses here, 9 houses there, 9 houses here. But because an officer or a councillor wants to change their front door on a listed building or wants to do something minor to their house, suddenly that's so important that it must come before the planning committee because we don't trust. There's a potential for tomfoolery. It's just this, it just beggars disbelief that this government feels that this is a right way to do this. And I'm grateful for the time that's been put into coming up with these questions and some of the answers that they probably won't like, they'll probably ignore, but we have every right to say it. In terms of the neighbourhood planning, and I'm glad Councillor Olive raised it, it's on the agenda of my own council meeting next Monday, is that literally the rug has been whipped away. The only chance that communities have to have some say at a granular level is now, no, we're not interested in hearing about that. It just really, it makes me very sad, and it doesn't give me much hope for what they're going to do for the next 3 years. But thank you, Chair.
Labour don't understand parishes, and therefore they don't understand neighbourhood plans. It's as simple as that. It is, unfortunately, a metropolitan elite perspective, as the Daily Express might write. Councillor Faithful, please.
I didn't actually read through all of this, so I'm not quite sure the situation, because originally it was supposed to say that we would decide on outline planning. Is that still the case? The major ones. I thought that's what the original proposal was. I don't.
Todd, do you want to pick that one up? Yeah. Or...
Yeah, so I mean, there's been various proposals that were floated in a previous working paper that talked about whether or not a site is allocated in the local plan, and then whether or not applications were contrary to the local plan or not, determining which route they went through. So they seem to have stepped back from that because I think a lot of comments to that working paper where it's not so clear cut as to whether or not something complies with a local plan or not. It might be allocated, but it might not comply with a detailed policy about parking standards or something, and therefore it might still be a departure from the local plan, and you could end up those going to committee just to talk about the number of parking spaces, for example. This is developed as this was one of the alternative approaches at that time that's been brought back. So it's more about the category of development and the scale of development rather than whether it's an outline application or a reserved matters application, for example. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Ed. Okay, so Cabinet, we've got a proposal from Councillor Olive to submit these answers. Forgive me, did we have a seconder? Dan, all those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Everybody, thank you for coming this evening. That brings an end to tonight's Cabinet meeting. Thank you to everybody who's been watching online or who has been present. Good night. Thank you.